So he graduated at University of Cambridge, not far from Milton Keynes, and subsequently went on to build six tech startups. And he's an avid writer. He wrote his first book called Creating Value with Artificial Intelligence, Lessons Learned from 10 Years of Building AI Products. His current interest is building AI solutions for social good, hence one of the reasons that he's here. And he's a Google for Startup mentor. He's a senior AI advisor of the European Financial Management Association. And I'm honored that he's here. He's very much in demand for his time, as you might expect. And he'll tell you how many talks he's giving today, no doubt, as he introduces himself. But I just couldn't think of anything better than Ru to come on and just talk about this incredible global collaboration that he's built and continues to build. 1,000 collaborators across the world, 80 countries, 20 projects. Ru, thank you so much for coming to join us today. I'm going to spotlight you. You've got 20 minutes. The stage is yours. Welcome.
Hey, cool. Thanks, Richard. Can I share the screen? We have a presentation which I can give.
Yeah, sure. Let me open that up for you. There you go.
And I am in Warsaw, actually, just to let you guys know. So this is so I'll give you a quick presentation of what we are doing. And you guys can see my screen, I presume, right? It might go a bit over 20 minutes. So please stop me if it goes beyond that. So I think that I want to talk more about, I want to talk about building AI for success rather than social good. And I'm trying to avoid using the word AI for good, because over the last 1 year, what I have seen that whenever I talk about AI for good, people immediately put us like, oh, you're an NGO kind of doing something, and I don't mind AI for good, but I think that invariably the AI for success is also AI for good. And we had this kind of interesting podcast or a call with Richard, we were talking about what is good and what is not good. So I'm going to talk about AI for success more, actually. So briefly about my background, just Richard quite well summarized it. I started as an AI researcher way back in 2002, worked on various topics of AI, published research papers. Then I was an entrepreneur. And then, I call myself an educator because I love speaking, I love mentoring, I love writing. And over the last 1 year, what has kept me really busy is building Omdena. And that's the story I'm going to tell you. So my outline for today is basically, I want to first of all say why most AI fails. And then I will argue that how to build AI for success. And I'll give you examples of some of the work that we have done. I'm happy to go and explain some more. Like I cannot go on and talk about all this 20, well, in fact, 24, we just kind of signed 2 more. So it's kind of growing every day. Say around 20 plus projects. So of course, I'll give you some examples. And I'll argue why the model that we are following works. And then finally make some conclusions. So perhaps most of you know that up to 87% of all AI projects actually fail to production. And that's really, really amazing, right? Because I just had today a call with the senior management of Allianz, and they say, oh, we have 500 data scientists, why do we need someone like you guys? And I'm like, well, you might have all the data science and all the engineers, but still the AI projects end up being failing. And there's something fundamentally wrong in how the systems are being built. And what I realized and there was a story behind that I will skip to in this presentation, but basically what I realized that after various experiences working with banks and things that, and big tech companies, is that there is a lack of inclusiveness. So when, for example, when Amazon, they built a solution that was to hire for the hiring of employees or tech engineers, it ended up being sexist because the people who were building the solution were mostly male. They didn't realize that the data was biased and that solution was sexist. And it has happened, many tech companies over and over again has built solutions that were unethical or that has problems. And the reason for that is basically the lack of inclusiveness or lack of diversity in the team. And of course, in the real world, because of certain factors, the data also is biased. So no one is there to point them out that, oh, look, the data is biased, so you have to kind of unbias the data before you can actually build a model on top of that. So that's one of the main reasons. The second reason is the process, actually. So one is the people, and second is the process. So often these companies that follow build solutions, big companies, small companies, they follow a very non-agile, typical waterfall kind of model. And so many banks, for example, big companies I've spoken to, and they say, we want to build a great solution, so we are trying to inbuild startup environments. So what we do is we put some beanbags so that people can just sit on the beanbags and they can wear whatever they want to wear. So hopefully these people will end up building solutions that will also be like startup, which doesn't work really. Like, if you really want to build startup mentality, then you have to not only bring beanbags and kind of wear whatever you want, but you actually have to build the processes that basically typically startups have, which most people don't have it unless you have really built startups, actually. The kind of how do you build products in a very fast way and test those products. And the third thing which actually causes failures is that unfortunately we live in a world which is driven by competition. And even in companies, big companies, small companies, they're all driven by competing. So they have this, create this silo. So each of the departments, one department is doing something, they don't share knowledge, exchange what they have, what they know, and that ends up creating solutions that are very, for example, not taking the full knowledge and not taking into account all the people and all the knowledge that is out there. And I think these are the three main reasons that causes most failures of AI systems. So the question is, okay, once we realize that, okay, it's a problem of the people and the process, actually, we have to change that. And in fact, just before this talk, I was giving a talk in data science meetup in Macedonia, and one of the guys said that he read an article in MIT which said that 90% of the problems could be solved by the right process and the people. The technology is only the 10%. Which I completely agree, especially in AI. I think the technology is one of the least important thing, actually. I mean, it is important, but it's not like rocket science anyway. So what we are saying, I'll just minimize this thing, that what we really need to do, if an organization wants to build AI solutions, and for good, when I said good, I mean for success, that people will use it, which invariably I think is good, actually. Then we need a more collaborative development process, which is with and for all, which includes everyone, and then it will definitely then build AI which is trustable, ethical, and efficient. And in fact, it was quite, I've been talking about this process, this way of building solutions for, at least 1 year, maybe more than 1 year. And I think it's not just about having some females or some males. It's truly basically a very diverse group. And with all, I don't mean just having a diversity for the sake of it. It's basically people with different knowledge, different backgrounds. That's the key here. And in fact, McKinsey came up with this article 3 weeks ago, actually, and I read about it, and I was like, oh, they're taking that, how do you build AI with and for everyone? And they're arguing that if you really want to build AI solutions, what you have to really do is to build AI with and for everyone. And I think, okay, I personally think that's great that they come to finally the realization of that, but well, I don't think they are the one who could actually build that kind of solution, which is with and for all. And so, as I said, the key to, if we want to build some AI solutions that are for success, that people will use it, and that will all invariably also be good, ethical, inclusive, then we need the right people, we need the right processes, and we need the right technology. It has three aspects of it. And as I before said, people and process defined 90% of that, and I think technology defines 10% of that. And that's what we have done. What we have been able to achieve over the last 1 year, it's now 14 months, is that we had over 1,200 collaborators that have, and domain experts that have come together from 82 now, by the way, countries and 21 projects that have, for a given period of time, they come and they work together and build a solution together. And who are these people that I'm talking about? Whenever I tell this story to people, they say, oh, there are some students who are coming and they have some free time doing some open source code. And I completely say, no, first of all, the model is not a kind of typical open source model where anyone just come in and go. We actually enforce quality, we enforce the certain hours, we enforce everything. And I will go and explain some of the models that we have built. Some of the models are actually even better than what I can claim Google has built. So it's not just like, some people coming together and doing something. There's a proper structure to all of that. There's proper processes and tools that we have doing. But give you some example of who are these people. And these are people who are extremely active. So I'm not just taking pictures of people and saying, oh, these are some of the faces. Each of them are extremely active in have been working with it. For example, Anil, she works in Google. Or Xavier, he's actually a professor in a business school. Or we have doctors, we have data scientists from Microsoft, we have people from Deloitte. I mean, really a range of people from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different experiences coming together. And in fact, we are so diverse that I think I claimed, I put a post like a week ago or a week and a half ago that we can perhaps claim the only data science company or a platform where there are 35% are lead machine learning engineers are females. And there is a structure to how people are, they move up the tier, but it's completely organic. So it's not like they are by somehow, that I want X percent of women. It's just that organically, if you create such an environment where people are given equal opportunities, then we see that, 35% of them are female, 30 to 35% collaborators are female. They come from all the countries, all the continents, and the age varies from 17 to 65. Typically, a lot of these are in mid-30s. So that's really, really, we bring a very diverse group of people who come together. And they're selected through a rigorous selection process. It's not just like when we, for example, post a problem that we want to solve, at least we get few hundred applicants in the first in the first week. So there is a selection process which goes to them, and then based on that, these people are selected. And we have worked with a lot of companies, right? Like I put some of those, for example, Foundation Partner, which is, I think, $2 or $3 or $4 billion foundation based in Switzerland. We have worked with World Energy Council, World Resource Institute. Safe City is a great NGO based in India. And we have also like startups, SMEs, and have been also covered in the FOB, the Next Web, and some other IEEE spectrum. And that's what we have seen. And we see that this model that we're talking about, and I do talk about it, I do write about it as much as I can, is getting a lot of interest in the recent time. In the last 4 weeks, we got 4 organizations that want to agree to work with us, that are going to work from the US, Switzerland, Israel. We are talking with finally the Shell. They reached out and they think that we are the right partner from them. UN headquarters, they want to work with us. So we get lots of in the last few days interest. So we see that what we have been able to do really clicks with people. It's a simple, on the paper, it looks a very simple model. Bring the right people, provide the right process, and make them solve the problem. And that's simple as that. An example of the work that we did, I just want to give you a few examples. I will not go too much technical details, but happy to elaborate if anyone wants me to explain. So for example, we worked in Nepal with World Food Program on classifying different types of crops. Or we worked with a startup in Sweden where they said that one of the biggest problems that energy companies or the overhead, the companies that own the overhead distribution, they face is the trees that they fall on top of the overhead cables. And we built a model with a 95% accuracy to identify individual trees through satellite images. We worked with in Brazil with an SME to identify forest fire. Well, it was more like a forest smoke, not the fire, but because the smoke comes first before the fire. So, and these are sophisticated models. These are deep neural network models. We use deep UNet. We used Mascard CNN. So these are like, and we had to gather the data, we had to train the data, attack the data. So all of this work is with 2 months of work, basically. Or we worked on natural language processing also, where I will go and talk about the Chicago gang violence next, for example, where we were trying to understand how gangs communicate, what are they talking about, and if there's a correlation between what gangs are talking in Twitter and actual violence that's happening in the real world. And I'll just give one presentation on that. Or we work with the World Resource Institute on understanding land conflicts and policies in India. So what has happened, they said that around the world, and also in India, people do not understand why land conflicts are happening, what causes them, and what are the policies that affect it. And we build a model which actually they told that they're using it not only in India, but they're using it in Indonesia, and I think also in Brazil. We work with World Energy Council to understand public sentiments towards energy transition. So this is the work that I was talking about briefly in terms of the Twitter, I get a lot of people asking this question. That's why I thought I would add a slide on that. So what we did is we basically, first of all, understood the language that gangs are using, because gangs don't use typical English, they use their own language. And then we try to understand if there's a correlation between, the actual number of actual crimes and the number of times a gun is used in the tweet. And on the same day, we didn't find any correlation, but with the 2-day shift, we saw that, that there is a correlation. So it shows that gangs are kind of, perhaps tweeting to each other, using some abusive languages with guns and threatening, and then in 2 days, the actual violence is happening. And this was with an organization based in Chicago, which is working with the FBI and local government. And we not only analyzed the correlation, but we also built a network analysis, which is basically understanding which gangs are talking. Because at the end, gangs, when gangs are threatening to be, and since they stay within their own area, so we can kind of predict where potentially our next violence will happen. On the other hand side, we worked with, for example, in Nigeria with a NGO that when they came to us and they said, one of the problems that they face, that the policymakers in Nigeria are, they don't think that they need solar power. So how can we convince them to use solar power? And what we did is we looked at Nigeria, we looked at what is at night, how many parts of Nigeria is dark. So, and then looked at what are the areas in Nigeria that is more than 15 kilometers away from the grid. So even if you create a lot of energy, coal power, these people or these areas which are away from the grid will not get the electricity. And we saw that then we identified places which are, have big population. So then you can show that map, and if this map is actually online, and they're actually using this online and going to policymakers. And in fact, Adimalo said he wrote in I think LinkedIn, said it basically changed their lives, because what he said that now they can go to policymakers and show that, look, you need to apply a solar power, because it's not a question anymore about good or bad. It's just about that these are the people, no matter how much coal you will generate, they will never get that coal power because they are not in the grid, or they are away from the grid. So that, and we work with UNHCR also on trying to understand the correlation between climate anomalies and conflicts. So we actually saw that there is a correlation. So what happens that whenever there is a climate anomalies, like mostly droughts, and when the drought happens, then we see that within I think within a month, there's an increase of conflicts. So again, this is something that could be used, is perhaps being used by UNHCR to kind of understand where could be the next conflict if there is a drought, so that they can avoid conflicts and save lives. We also worked on AI planning. I'm just giving some snippets of some of the work that we did without going into too much details. But for example, in the AI planning which we worked was on Istanbul. I'll go in that one after this. But in India we worked, which was very interesting work, is an organization called Safe City, and they have around 15,000 data points on people reporting on sexual violence or sexual harassment. And we build a safe plan, a safe route algorithm, so that whenever someone reports about a sexual harassment that they are facing, that path they will get in their app, the path to go from the reach to the safe area, which is based on the amount of like the time, because there are patterns in what are the safe areas in the city at what time, and the nearest, for example, the police station or the hospital or the train station or the metro station. So, and that is actually they are implementing that inside in the app that they already have that people are using to report. So I mean, there's a and the Istanbul one I was talking about it. So this was interesting work also. That this was with Impact Hub, and they said one of the challenge they want to build is when an earthquake hits in Istanbul, that they want to know how to reach from point A to point B. What is the safest route to reach from point A to point B? And so what we did is we initially thought, okay, we can use OpenStreetMap data, which was insufficient. So instead of that, we analyzed the satellite images. We tried this Fateh. Fateh is one of the most densest area in the city and district in the city. And then based on that, we created a heat map of the buildings. And then from the heat map, we generated a safe route. So we know that if an earthquake hits, a safe route would be the one which goes away from the densely populated area. So, and you can see here, the blue line is the one what Google was recommending from point A to point B, which is of course the shortest distance. And our algorithm was bypassing the dense areas and kind of giving another alternative algorithm. And actually, the Next Web wrote an article about it called "This AI Could Unite Families After Earthquake." I thought it was a great article title for for what we did. So I think these are the different. I mean, currently I wanted to show you what are the work that we are doing before I can go into this. So quickly, I will show you. Maybe you can see my screen. Currently, for example, we are running 4 projects. So one is on fighting illegal dumping. So this is with a Slovakian NGO that have data points, around 55,000 data points of people reporting illegal dumping. So they want to understand the patterns, and also they want to build a model that would help people know when they have an object, what kind of category they should put that into for recycling, for example. We are working with Arizona State University that we just finished on understanding sentiments of the youth. This was interesting work that we did is on domestic violence in India during COVID. So we tried to understand what are the effects on domestic violence in India during the COVID times, during the lockdown. So these are the different things that are currently working. There's an upcoming couple of projects, so that's all in our website. Anyway, so coming back to the point is why this model works actually, and this is something people like, to me it's, sorry. This is something I cannot make it. Give me a second. This works like this. Okay. So the thing is why this model works. So, and even for me, to be very honest, when I started this thing, I was not sure how this will all work out. This was just an idea that I had and said, let's try it out. And it was very well described in one guy at a very early, one of the first project that we did. It is Vajko, he was from Croatia. He wrote a beautiful piece, and one of the things that he said that this model works because it's truly a bottom-up self-organized environment where the crucial conclusions and the optimal solutions emerge as winners. So initially it's a complete chaotic environment, but then the right decisions and the best models win, which is actually, that's the create that because of this diversity of group. For example, when we were doing the Somalia project, I remember we had someone from Somalia who is a refugee in Kenya, and she was kind of giving a lot of context to the problems that they're facing that would help the people around the world to kind of build the model. And often the best decision, the best solution is not necessarily the best technical solution. The best solution is you have to take into context and the people that are going to use it. And what we have seen that, when we use this kind of collaborative environment, we end up building very fast, the best model wins. We are able to build ethical, inclusive, and trustable solutions. And at the end, we also are really reskilling and upskilling the collaborators. This is, again, something that I didn't personally expect, but tons of people, if you follow us in LinkedIn, you'll see tons of people write about us, that how much they learned, how much they did in these 2 months. And that's very, very valuable in today's world.
Hey, let's start the Q&A with you, because we're just running down the clock here. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So,
I just have 3 slides more, but yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe you can weave them in, but if I just ask you for a couple more minutes and then we'll bring the rest of the panel back in, otherwise we're literally going to run the clock down. Lucy says, what's your recruitment criteria and employment model that's enabled you to have such a diverse and global team?
I'm sorry?
She says, what's the criteria you have for recruitment and employment that's got this diversity? How have you done it?
Okay, so there is different criteria. We try to understand the intrinsic motivation, the extrinsic motivation, the time commitment, the technical skills, and the ability to take initiatives. So there are different metrics that we try to analyze someone based on that, and there are different ways that we do that. But these are the 5 factors that we take into account before selecting someone.
Great, thank you so much. Do you want to just close for 30 seconds, then we'll move to the panel? Have you got something you want to wrap up and say?
No, I just want to share that, like, how much, what is basically the value that on one side, people said they learned a lot of things in 2 months and how much they learned, and on the other side, we can also see that how much benefit it is for the organization. So we are basically solving the both sides of the puzzle in a very, very effective way, which I think that's a future that we need to build, where you have to use collaboration, you have to reskill the people, and you have to build solutions that social value if you really want to build something which is kind of tangible value and for good and adaptive.
Yeah.